Leadership has a tendency to treat long-standing problems as if they're simply part of life, something everyone talks about but no one tries to fix. Funding Bridgeport Public Schools has become one of those problems. Everyone knows leadership has failed. Not everyone can understand why. Year after year, decade after decade, the results are the same. The students with the greatest needs receive the fewest resources. The people with the power to change that point the finger of blame at each other to explain why it is not their fault. That can't continue. There is enough blame to go around. Bridgeport students are not struggling because the Board of Education and administration lack understanding. The data is clear. The solutions exist. What's missing is the will of leadership to act boldly, especially at the state level, where the greatest responsibility lies. Connecticut's education cost-sharing formula was created to make school funding more equitable after courts found the over-reliance on property taxes to fund education discriminatory. It also recognizes something else quite obvious: educating students in communities with higher poverty, more multilingual learners, and greater social challenges costs more. Bridgeport is exactly the kind of district the formula was designed to support. Yet for 13 years, the state has not funded that formula in a way that reflects real costs. Prices of everything have risen, including the cost of delivering an education. Student needs have grown. Expectations for schools have expanded. But the foundation of the funding system has not kept up. Connecticut has had the financial ability to fix this imbalance for years. Instead, leadership has chosen gradual steps and partial measures, even while building billions of dollars in reserves. Consequence is predictable. Districts like Bridgeport operate with a funding gap that grows year after year. When the state acknowledges need, but doesn't provide the resources to meet it, the burden doesn't vanish. The burden is passed on cities, to school districts, and ultimately to children. And those children are overwhelmingly Black, brown, immigrant, and low income. Bridgeport is a majority-minority city where many students face challenges that are well documented and understood. In its entire history, Connecticut has never had a non-white governor. And the state's biggest financial decisions are still made by the uber-wealthy, far removed from the communities most affected by them. Whether intentional or not, the outcomes are clear. When equity policies are underfunded, children of color bear the brunt of the consequences. That is why the legislators' and governor's decisions this year matter so much. The upcoming primary should not be about vague promises or abstract ideology. It should be about something much simpler, whether equity is treated as a real commitment or just a talking point. To prove equity is not just a talking point, the governor and legislature should support equitable revenue bills, designed to equitably tax the rich and make them pay their fair share, specifically HB 5187, HB 5133, SB 101, and SB 104. This will create a new funding stream that would allow the state to raise the X Foundation to at least $16,500 immediately and link it to inflation. Voters deserve clear answers. Will the state fully fund the formula? Will it make up for the funding that has effectively been withheld for more than a decade? And will it pursue a long-term revenue strategy that asks the wealthiest residents, including the governor, who benefit the most from the state's economy, and massive tax cuts by the Trump administration to contribute their fair share? These questions require clear answers. And the governor should ultimately be judged not by his speeches, but by his actions. But accountability cannot stop in Hartford. Bridgeport must also take an honest look at itself in the mirror without the smoke. Local decisions matter too, compared with similar cities facing similar economic challenges. Bridgeport dedicates a smaller share of its locally raised revenue to public education. Over time, school funding has to often been treated as the leftover, so much so that Bridgeport is ranked dead last in per-pupil funding in the entire state, even behind municipalities that are even more financially constrained by poverty, not taxable properties, and high mill rates. When of the budget that comes after other priorities are protected, and jobs added to the city payroll, while simultaneously being cut in education. That reality weakens the city's argument. When it goes to Hartford, it makes it easier for state leaders to deflect responsibility. The state should never use local underinvestment as an excuse to shortchange students. But Bridgeport shouldn't hand them that excuse on a silver platter either. Bridgeport has also never had a non-white mayor, despite being a city defined by its diversity. That history places a responsibility on local leadership to make sure that policy decisions reflect the needs of the community. Budgets are moral documents if education truly is the foundation of Bridgeport's future. It has to be treated that way when the city decides how to spend its money. This is not about assigning blame for its own sake. It's about alignment. This moment should not be about political theater. It should be about partnership and seriousness. If Bridgeport commits to a transparent and measurable plan to strengthen its own investment in education, it will be in a much stronger position to demand what it is owed from the state. Credibility at home strengthens accountability in Hartford. Ultimately, this issue comes down to something simple. For too long, responsibility has been passed back and forth while children pay the price. Real equity cannot come from half measures or finger-pointing. It requires leaders at every level to act with courage and honesty. The state must finally do what it has delayed for years. The city must do what it can, no longer postpone. And the public must insist that neither be allowed to look away. Our children are not asking for perfection. They're asking for fairness, and for leaders willing to finally step up and deliver it.